Well, Danielle, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you as you're both an award-winning journalist and an experienced journalist. To start off with, could you tell us a little bit about your career and what you're currently doing at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Naomi. So at the moment, I'm editor of the Brisbane Times, which is a metropolitan news site based in Queensland's capital. It's part of Nine Publishing. So we're one of the top 20 news sites in the country in terms of audience. And we cover sort of local, national, and international stories feature on our website. In terms of my career, I studied politics and journalism at the University of Queensland. I then worked for a couple of regional dailies, did a bit of a stint overseas, and then was in Canberra for 11 years, where I covered federal politics for most of that time, including the coup against Kevin Rudd. So I have a newspaper background, and then I've joined the Brisbane Times, and it's online only. So it's been an exciting time to learn all about digital. And Brisbane's actually my hometown, but I haven't lived here for quite a long time. So it's nice to be home as well.
You've been a journalist and editor for quite some time. Are there any
hmm
notable stories or interesting stories that you could share with us?
Oh, there's been so many highlights. I think some of the stuff that I did in Canberra, some investigative pieces into the world of lobbying. Obviously, it was pretty amazing to also be there when Kevin Rudd apologised to the stolen generations. And there was also the coup against Rudd and the first female prime minister. So all of that was pretty interesting. Working in South Africa was a great career highlight as well. It's something that I had always been interested in, the history of the country and apartheid and Nelson Mandela. So having that opportunity to go and work there for a while was really cool and interesting. Oh, and another career highlight is last year I finished up a 12-month fellowship with the Columbia Journalism School and Google News Initiative. And that was kind of a newsroom leadership fellowship. So that was an amazing opportunity. I learned a lot through that process.
So bringing it back to the present, you are obviously editor of Brisbane Times. What does a day in your life look like as an editor?
There are a few staples of a day. One of the things I love about journalism is no 2 days are exactly the same. I think that's really one of the beauties of this game. So sort of the staples of the day is I'm normally up about 5:30, checking what's making news. You know, maybe if I want to have some tweaks to the homepage, I'll send those through. Then I'm on deck from 7, like officially, and have a couple of things. So we have local and national news conferences. You know, sometimes I'll have extra meetings with product and tech teams. And it's just about making sure that we've got the best possible stories for each edition of the site. And so I work like with the reporters on their ideas, and I also commission stories that I particularly want, and then we work out best ways to present them and best times to run them.
What do you look for in a journalist that is wanting to, I guess, join your newsroom? What are the qualities, what are the traits that you look for?
So there's a few things. So obviously a natural curiosity about the world, tenacity. You know, you need to chase stories hard and, you know, make sure you've got the best possible version of a story on the website. I also look a lot too at what type of fit they would be with our culture. We devote a lot of energy to creating a culture that's very collaborative and collegial, and also celebrating our successes. And if we make a mistake, you know, interrogating what went wrong and how to stop that happening again. So someone that's on board with getting constructive feedback and is always, and I'm also very big on constant learning and improvement. So, and I think the best time to do that is when, you know, your masthead is performing well, because then you can, you know, you have that kind of luxury of not being in crisis mode, and you can look at how you do things. I also like people that don't kind of rest on, we've done it this way, let's do it this way all the time, because, you know, it's really good to push the boundaries of storytelling, or, come up with a new way to present a story, because the beauty of digital is that the platform doesn't dictate how the story is told. You can take from any technology to make the story sing. So it's really the story that dictates how it's told.
Do you think having a social media presence as a journalist is important? And if you do, how would you go about building that?
Yeah, I think it is important. Like, Facebook is still quite a big driver of traffic to websites, universally. We can't rely on it solely, because obviously they can change the algorithm and that can change like the results. So I think having a social media presence, particularly if you're pitching to a digital editor, is really beneficial, because we can kind of see how active you are, what type of things you share, what sort of following you have. It's not the be and end all, but I think if you're going to build a brand, social media needs to be part of that brand. In terms of being good at social, I have I have this saying: it's better to have people think you're an idiot than to tweet and remove all doubt. So that's what I run through my head before I tweet something. And also, it's tricky. I can get that, but just be mindful that what you're posting on social might be looked at by someone who's making a decision about whether they pick up your pitch. I think another key thing for social is to be authentic, and it's not all about broadcasting. People may have a valid point that they have, or a complaint that's very valid, and to acknowledge that and to thank them for pointing it out, I think is a really good way to show that you're not just trying to broadcast all the time, and that you are actually engaging on social with people.
What would your advice be to a recent graduate who is looking to move into the world of media and specifically journalism?
Journalism is an amazing profession. I love it. It's demanding and challenging, but it's just such an honour to be able to write something or present something or publish something, and it has real impact on people's lives. If you want to be a journalist, I think the first thing to ask yourself is, it might sound glamorous, but it's a lot of long hours sometimes and a lot of hard work, but it's so much fun. So much fun.
How important is it to be always upskilling and always thinking, how do I get onto what's next?
It's critically important. Making sure that you keep across sort of the latest developments in the industry, and some of the publications that you can subscribe to get the newsletter: Columbia Journalism Review, Neiman Lab, Reuters Institute at Oxford. They have a really great annual report on the state of digital media. I think they're super important to keep across. I personally belong to a group called Gather, which I really enjoy. It's community engagement experts from around the world, and they swap ideas and showcase like successes that they've had. You can also just do something simple if you're not as obsessed as I am, and just create a Twitter list of all the interesting ones. Journalism.co.uk is really good as well. And just create that and just kind of dip in every now and then and see what they're doing. A lot of media outlets too have labs. So the BBC, for instance, has a story lab, and there's similar ones in like New York Times. So they often have share what they're working on, or if you are on Medium, they have their own kind of pages on Medium that you can follow and see what they're doing. So yeah, I think it's important to keep across that. And it's not just about technology, because I think they're two separate things. I think technology is the means to do things, but kind of having that innovative mindset is like challenging the way you do things rather than the means, and being inspired by others is great. The other one I'd probably mention is Online News Association. They're really good as well. And every year they put out awards for excellence in online journalism. And I think why I like it so much is that they separate it by size of newsroom, and it shows you that you don't need like a staff of the New York Times to do things that are innovative. An example is we had our state election last year, and I was kind of sitting on my couch in lockdown going, well, at the best of times, people feel disengaged from politics. So what can we do when they're going to probably be even more disengaged to get them as part of the process? So we launched a thing called Ask a Reporter, and people could just pose any question election related, and either the experts in the newsroom or we'd go to academia and get a response like to questions: is it possible for North Queensland to secede from the rest of the state? So we got a law professor to give us an answer. You know, what happens if the Premier doesn't win and stuff like that. And we found that that was so popular. We've had people saying, can you keep it going forever?
How important is it for women to support other women or each other within the media industry?
I think it's critically important for women to support other women. And it's great also to have women in senior roles. There's a lot of women coming up through journalism now, possibly the most in the history of our craft here. So I think having those women come through who also bring amazing ideas to the table as well. Like, the ideas aren't just from the senior levels. One of the things I most love about our newsroom is we're very, like, every voice is equally important. Like, at the end of the day, it's my call, but I want to hear what people think. I want to hear what they want to give a go to. Having that supportive environment, particularly for women, is they bring some amazing things to the table. And the more diverse newsrooms are, the better they reflect their community as well. And I'm talking about diversity in terms of gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic background even. And supporting that and nurturing that just makes it a more dynamic newsroom, a better news site. It's better for the community as well.
You mentioned that you drive the digital strategy for women in media. You also serve on their board and you took part in establishing the Queensland branch. Could you talk to us about the advantages of joining women in media?
Oh, there are so many. So I love what Women in Media stands for, and I love that it makes me feel like I'm giving back to an industry that has given so much to me, because it stands for inspiring, empowering women, offering professional development. And I've met women through WIM that I possibly wouldn't have met, because being an editor, kind of most of the time I have to be in the office. So going to these events, networking, I've made like lifelong friends out of it. And I really believe in its mission. And I think on a personal note, I've never actually had a female editor in my entire career. So I ended up becoming one. And I feel that being an editor, giving back to whether it's journalists coming up or connecting with women in senior levels, is just a really great thing. And it's also just got a really great sense of camaraderie. And I really like that. We all support each other. And, you know, we have amazing events and the mentoring program as well. Most people might not have a mentor or have never even considered having a mentor, but it can be so valuable just to have that person that can be a sounding board and they don't actually have any stake in your newsroom. So, but yeah, there's a lot of upsides of being part of Women in Media.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for sitting down with me and chatting today.
It was an absolute pleasure, Naomi.